to Breaking Down Bits, a conversation about great comedy bits with the comedians who wrote and performed them.
Drew Jordan.
What is up, Brian? Good to be back with still making this happen. It's been a wonderful thing to keep us busy and to keep us talking comedy during the quarantine. How's your last couple days been?
Hey, Drew, it's been great, man. Breaking Down Bits is what we're here to do. And man, we've had some great shows. Maybe we'll get into some quick callbacks. Our last episode with Danny Palumbo. What'd you get out of it?
There was a lot there. There's a couple different things I loved a lot. One of the things, because I'm not extremely physical in my comedy, I love the fact that he uses his voice to create characters, to create difference, to create drama. It's an easy way to, step out of that narrative place where I can kind of get really comfortable narrating, but to really move into an act out space. And if you're someone like me who's not incredibly extroverted, it's a nice first step into that.
Absolutely. And for me, it was about getting comfortable in the room, allowing yourself to be present. And the other thing was getting the work done so that when you get there, comedy could just be enjoyable. I thought that was really wise. Very excited about today, Drew. This is going to be a different format. We're talking about roast comedy. You and I have also decided stupidly that we're going to roast each other. And if our guest is willing to have her judge us at the end, what are we doing, man? But this is going to be a lot of fun. So speaking of our guest, let's go ahead and get to know her.
She's a regular on Chelsea Lately, writer for The Burn with Jeff Ross, and red carpet host of the roast of Justin Bieber and the CMAs. Sarah Tiana has been a working comedian in Los Angeles since 2003. Sarah received notoriety for her performance as Carmen in Reno 911. She's done over 12 tours of comedy for the troops all around the world, and when she's not on the road, she can be seen regularly at the world-famous Comedy Store.
All right, Drew, we are joined by Sarah Tiana. Sarah, go ahead and unmute yourself, sweetheart, and say hello.
Oh, I don't think I'm muted. Am I muted?
You're live. You're in there.
Oh, okay. I was like, that was like all slow motion. But hi, everybody. I'm Sarah. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being a part of the show. I love that we get to explore something a little bit different. On this episode, we typically, just talk about the writing and performance, but today we get to dive in a little more specifically about roast jokes because you're just so darn good at them, and you've had some amazing performances. So I'm excited to hopefully I can't get worse at roast jokes, so hopefully I can only get better at this point.
Definitely, there's only one way to go with roast jokes, and that's up.
So Sarah, that's actually how I discovered you. I don't remember, it was years ago before I got into comedy. I found the Comedy Central roast battles, season 1 and 2, and I just binged them. And you stood out far and above, stood out more than Mike Lawrence, I should add. And it was great. And I'm like, man, so I've been following your career ever since, and just an incredible run in comedy. And we're excited you can join us to talk roasting.
Thank you so much. That's an honor. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, typically we start with an open-ended question about just how does Sarah Tiana write comedy in general, but maybe we can twist it here and go, what's your process of specifically writing roast jokes?
Well, I mean, I've been writing roast jokes since I think the roast of Donald Trump might have been the first one that I ever started working on, but I think the first one I got paid to work on was Sheen. So basically that's how long I've been writing roast jokes. And obviously the longer you do it, the better you get. But honestly, the way you start with roasting is you start with research. You have to find out everything you can about the person that you're roasting, and then you can write jokes about them. Also, the number one rule in roasting is that you only roast the ones you love, because if you don't, then those jokes just end up being mean and not clever and smart.
So you just said you're voting for Trump, is what you just said.
Yes, right. Yes.
But no, you've roasted a president. That is something.
Yeah.
So let me ask you two things, because I want to know about you a little bit more about how you're so good at this. So my assumption might be that you were like a mean girl in high school and you had a burn book. Is that, am I way off on that?
No, I actually I pride myself on being really nice. And honestly, my approach to roasting, I think, might be a little bit different. And that's because I'm not a mean person. When I'm writing a joke about you, I want you to be impressed and I want you to want to use that joke in your act. So I'm trying to write a joke that will impress you, not offend you, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And actually your stage presence, it's it's so sweet and so nice. And then it's almost like anytime they write a joke, you're like, oh, I feel bad for you. That's, you know,
yeah. Because I mean, what happens is I work really hard on them. I dig deep, I find stuff. And the other reason that you roast the ones that you love is because you're never going to say something about someone that, would hurt their feelings. I'm not going to bring up something that would offend whoever I'm roasting, or cut too deep. And so, I think you start this rapport. And then also when I say things about you, it's coming from this Southern kind face. And so nobody really gets too upset. So I've always kind of had that in my corner, and I used it to my advantage as opposed to just ignoring it.
Yeah, it's a left hook for sure. You do not see that coming from you with your delivery and everything. When you say you do research, and I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is, do you go with stuff that everybody already knows about that person, or how do you? Let's say you're digging, and you find something really great for a roast joke, but it's not commonly known. How do you bring that up? How do you inform the crowd about all this stuff before you use it as a joke?
Well, you have to bring it up in the setup. That's the problem. So if it's not common knowledge, then you can't just skirt over it, which means the setup also has to be somewhat funny. I'm trying to think of a good example of something like a deep dive that I remember before we did Roast Battle on Comedy Central, we did it live in Montreal at the Comedy Festival up there the year before. And that's where I started getting all this heat and momentum, because I was roasting a ton of people. All the X-Men were there, and I think Aaron Rodgers was dating Olivia Munn, so it was all this stuff was going on. And then I roasted Catherine Ryan, who's this incredible comedian who's she lives in London, but she's Canadian, I think. And so anyway, I had friends in London who I was texting with to get me information. And I ended up talking to her ex-husband, over text, just getting information. And then ultimately some of the stuff was just I didn't want to have to explain too much stuff like that. That's the other problem with a roast joke. If you have a big setup, the punchline better be good, because if the punchline is just okay, then you just wasted so much time.
So all the joke writing rules still apply. You still want to keep it tight, keep your setups tight, and then dig for dirt. The other thing I'm going to assume about you is that you're a pretty known sports fan. Is it just the competitiveness that you like? Were you an athlete growing up?
Yeah, I was an athlete growing up, and I'm super competitive. Everything's a competition. I mean, I love Survivor. I love The Bachelor, all because of competition. Any kind of competition, I'm down and I want to win. And so, you work and you work and you work. And that first season of Roast Battle was different and unprecedented, different than any other of the roast battles, because we had to do all of that in 4 days. So I wrote, for the finale, I was I could potentially have 3 or 4 different people that I was roasting. So I had to write 4 roast battles in 24 hours, which is really tough. Yeah. So, by the time I made it to the final, it was your brain is putty and spent. And I let off with the wrong joke, and it was just downhill from there. Like, the first joke you tell is so important.
Yeah. I would love to know your theory on that. You only get a handful of jokes, 3 to 5, something like that, jokes. What is your strategy on ordering those? Is it still like a regular set? Like, you might start off with your second best and you end with your best. What's your strategy there?
You try. Yeah. You definitely you want to start strong and you want to end strong. So you want to keep your best joke for the end, but you have to start strong. So it's kind of, and honestly, like, I usually know where I'm going to start. I know where I want to end. And then I'm just Peyton Manning I'm just calling audibles the whole time, because it just depends on what they say, because you might want to do a rebuttal. And like with me, I always knew my rebuttal could always be about being like, men always called me like a whore and like all this stuff, it's like, you could just tell what guys are going to say about you, because like, and unfortunately, I'm a very difficult person to roast because I don't really have a lot on my record, so to speak. So it's kind of hard to beat me, because you have to find something about me that no one's talked about. And people can call me, that's why Mike Lawrence we met up before the show. We met up the day before and told each other like all this stuff about each other, just so. And I feel like he told me all the stuff he's already told everybody. And I told him things that I had never told anybody. Like, I've only like slept with like a couple people, you know what I mean? Like, everybody calls me a whore. I remember one time I roasted Big Papi from the Boston Red Sox. And like, I was the only woman on the panel, and like literally everybody called me like Gronk, like everybody's calling me just like a whore the whole time. And so I got up there and I was like, you guys are giving me a lot of credit. My list of sexual partners is a lot like Dustin Pedroia. It is embarrassingly short. And so like, it was like a great way to start off, because I was like starting with a rebuttal, and then I was like, I kind of had everybody in my hands and made fun of myself, but also made fun of Dustin at the same time. And so it was just kind of like a nice, easy way in.
That's fun. The rebuttal stuff is a unique thing to kind of like, okay, what are they going to maybe say about me? How can I turn this around and fire it back? And like, it's kind of an interesting thing. You do have that moment in the maybe, I don't know what the official rules to roast battle are, but you do have that moment of kind of interchange in between that doesn't count as a full joke. It's just kind of a little clap back, little rebuttal. That way you can kind of like, I don't know, that's a whole nother thing. And does it count as one of your major jokes?
Yeah, no, it doesn't count. I mean, sometimes people will try to sneak in 1 or 2, and I think the judges are really usually on top of that. So, you don't want it to be lopsided, but I was always just like, I know I got 5 killer jokes, and like, I can call an audible if I feel like another one based on what they said will be stronger. Like if somebody, is talking about their beard, and I kind of had a joke about their beard, but like, I didn't really want to bring it up because everybody talks about it. It's a great time to do it right after they make some sort of rebuttal, So you're kind of just like always on the edge waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But one thing you can do with those, right, is get the crowd behind you and get some momentum. And even if it doesn't count in like an official judge's score, it helps you with your delivery if you know that the crowd's already behind you, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And you can bring that up. Like, you can use anything that you can possibly use. It's a fight. So you're going to use every weapon.
That's right. And so do you write those clapbacks? It sounded like possibly you write them like knowing what they're going to say about you. So you've already got those written.
I don't know. I'm anticipating what they're going to say about me. Yeah, I'm just anticipating like what they can say about me. What would I write about myself? Like, I would write about being Southern. So like, people will call me racist or dumb, or, what about being a woman or an Atlanta sports fan who's just like constantly disappointed. Like, those are the things that I would write about myself.
Here's one thing that I like about roast comedy, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about boundaries and maybe if they've changed, but this is the one place where you can punch down, right? And also a place where some stereotypes are still in play a little bit as long as it's done in the right way. Has that changed over time with it? Because the rest of comedy is it's very there's the cancel culture, right, and all that. This is one place where it's a little different. How has that changed, and how can you write in that space still today?
I mean, I guess like the best example of that was like the Alec Baldwin roast we just did was on, we had Caitlyn Jenner. And so it was like, there was all these like, well, can we make fun of trans people? Can we talk about her new vagina? Can we do this? Can we do that? You know what I mean? And, obviously we did. I mean, this was also before any of the protests have been happening and stuff like that. I don't know what comedy and roasting is going to look like. It's generally unaffected. People try to act like they're upset, but usually people aren't offended. They're worried someone's going to think that they're not offended. And that is obviously like more offensive because it's just, virtue signaling. It's like acting like I'm upset. And I'm like, no, you're not. You want people to know that you're upset, because that way you don't look bad. But it's like the essence of friendship is I can make fun of you, you can make fun of me, and we're still friends. That's how friendship works. We're really friends if we can both make fun of each other. And so I feel like, do I think we're going to start making fun of Black people? No. Do I think we're going to stop making fun of white people? No. Like Robert De Niro used 2 of my jokes in the Alec Baldwin roast, and they were all about fucking Black women. So, which he can do because both of his wives have been Black.
It seems like
I don't know if that answers your question, but like.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. Those are good examples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Especially when you have basketball players on the panel who are Black and don't date Black women. So
did you ever do Blake Griffin? Did you ever go up against him?
I haven't battled him, but I helped him with his roast at Baldwin.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's talented.
Yeah. He's very talented. We did that. I think the roast in Montreal. No. He was in Montreal the year that we did the roast battle, and he was like hosting his own show. So that's where I met him, and we started becoming friends there. And then like I asked him if he was coming to the roast battle finals, and he said he couldn't. And I was like, of course, you've never been to a Final Four. And so like it just like sealed the deal for our friendship. Yeah.
Perfect.
Is there
sorry, my baby just woke up.
Oh, we knew it was coming. This is quarantine.
I know.
Go get to your baby.
Okay, I'll be right back.
We got you.
That's awesome.
So Drew, what are we learning here? I think for me, so I don't know about you, but I grew up in the Boston area, and that's all of our friends did was just break each other's balls all the time.
Yeah.
It's just how we grew up. Maybe that's everywhere. I don't know, but it seemed like especially in Boston. But here's the difference. Like you can't just take that onto stage and assume that it'll work. You still gotta, to her point, you still gotta make it tight. You still gotta set it up, and you have to bring the audience in, because your question was, what if, it's not as known information. So like, even though my friends are really funny and they're really funny in the living room, it doesn't translate necessarily to a good roast battle. Right.
Kind of like you put, you still have to follow all the basic rules of comedy. And just like you're writing a regular joke, the dragging out the setup, you can't assume they know anything about this person, which to me is like kind of a struggle. Cause in a typical, I think in a regular roast battle situation that a comedian might find themselves in, you're going up against perhaps someone from another city that you don't know very well. And I guess you just have to go through and dig through their Instagram. Hey.
Oh my gosh.
That's so cute. You have to dig through their Instagram and try to find something in there. Cause you don't I feel like in the local roast battles, the comics, that's not a problem. But when if you maybe get to the next level and you're doing like your city versus the next city over, then you really gotta put a lot of information in the setup, or it doesn't make sense.
I found it interesting when Sarah was talking about sitting down with Mike Lawrence, and he stone-faced her and gave her only like known information, and then she, of course, gave him everything that she had, which is, no problem. It's life. And by the way, that baby's famous. I saw him on TBS. He was on your video for Tournament of Laughs. Is that what it was called?
Oh yeah, he was on Tournament of Laughs. Yeah. TBS. Yeah, he's been on TV like. He was on, because I used to write for Spade's show Lights Out, and so he was on Lights Out the day after he was born. Yeah, so. Oh wow! And then my boyfriend's a sportscaster on the Rich Eisen show, so he's been on there a bunch. So I know he's got more credits than I do. You know,
child star Dickie Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is great. Well, we're glad he joins us. We've got a true celebrity in the room. If you're ready for it, let's get into this roast. Do you want to set it up a little bit? Your relationship with Dolph, how this came together, when this was, anything else you want to share with us about this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, basically, after I did the first season of Roast Battle, Comedy Central came back and they wanted me to do it again, but the format had changed a little bit. And they said, well, who do you want to roast? We'll, like whoever you want. And I was like, you're basically asking me who I'm okay losing to, like that's like, I'm not going to pick somebody that's like easy, that I could just tear a hole into, but I want to pick somebody good. That's fun, and like Nick and I, or Dolph had been we do a lot of stand-up shows together, and we started doing a tour together. And then we were like, I was like, this would really help our tour if we could battle each other together on TV. And I asked him if he was down because he's such a huge fan of the roast. Like he would come as my guest to the roast all the time. He would just sit in the back. Like no one even knew he was there. He's probably more famous than half the people on the dais. You know what I mean? So like he would literally just sit in the back and like in the dark, like nobody even knew he was there. And so I asked him and he was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'd love to. And then immediately like regretted it. Like, oh my God, maybe not. And then I was like, well, we're not going to do anything, like say anything that's not true or that we don't mean, and like, and so, yeah, so he said yes. And then we both just like went to writing and like, again, when, you only roast the ones you love. And I really love him. And I was like, if I lose to him, like, this is great. Like he never wins anything in wrestling. This would be great if he could like win in roasting. So, it was great. And then it just also great exercise for us to be able, because we roast each other nonstop already. Like our whole day, he is so sarcastic and so am I. And so like the whole time that we hang out and we just constantly make fun of each other.
Well, let's go ahead and get it started. I broke it up into 5 parts, and I started with the intro because it's fun and playful, and I think it really helps paint the picture of what you guys are, your relationship in some ways.
Sarah, why did you pick this guy to roast tonight?
He's one of my best friends, and he's a known loser, so I thought I had a good chance.
Well, that was so nice. You said known.
I like that you both have the same haircut but style it differently.
Yeah. We also get our periods at the same time now.
Hell yeah!
Save it!
I love that so much. I had to get it in because you didn't know that was coming. Yeah.
No, I forgot about that line. That's so funny.
And then you've got your peers. I mean, obviously Jeff Ross and then Jesselnick and Nikki. I mean, is that intimidating to you? It'd be intimidating as fuck to me, but to you?
No, I just felt more guilty that like they are my friends and like they feel like they have to like choose, because they know him too, you know what I mean? And like obviously like Jesselnick and Nick or Dolph dated the same girl. So like it's like it was like a whole history thing, So I had things prepared to say in case that was brought up.
The Eskimo brother thing. Okay, that makes more sense. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, of course, because if Jesselnick voted for Dolph, I was going to be like, of course you're going to vote for family. I mean, Eskimo brothers is like technically brothers. Yeah. But like, yeah, I didn't have to say any of that. And then like, Yeah, with Jeff, I was ready to say, like, if he voted for Dolph, I was going to say, like, of course you're voting for the person in this room that's broken more chairs than you, you know? And so the one person who's ever broken more chairs than you. So yeah, that was like, I was like prepared, so that's hard when it's your friends because you don't want to like have to put them in that situation. But luckily they voted for me.
Those jokes. So are you okay? So let me ask you about those. Are you doing those for the sake of the production and the value of the overall show, or are you doing those maybe to kind of if there's two people who voted and they're on the fence and you threw that last hook in there and now you've got a little extra, or both?
Yeah, for sure. You're just like, I'm just prepared for every situation. So like, to me, I look at it like football, like what's my playbook? Like what is every possible situation that I can be put in? I want to be prepared for all of those things. The only thing I really wasn't prepared for was to win. I was like prepared to lose like in every possible way. And then for them to win, I was like, they were so nice to me and they were so complimentary. I was not prepared for that.
I mean, it sounds like the biggest key, perhaps, to roast battling is just being prepared for anything that might happen and trying to run through all the potential scenarios. And if you can do that well, no matter what happens, you'll be ready. Because the worst thing that can happen is something happens and you're not ready for it. You haven't thought it through, and you don't have a great joke for that moment.
Right. Or you have one joke that you wrote that you're like about the judges, and then they don't bring anything up about it. And then like you force that joke, and then all of a sudden it's like awkward. Now you're just like making fun of them for no reason. You know what I mean? I think I did that to Spade in like the first round of roast battle before we were really friends. I think I said like something about him, like not being on the list of like some party or something. It's like the only list he's ever been on or something. And like, he was like, what? Like, where did that come from? And I was like, oh God, I'm lucky I like have a nice face, or that might not have gone over well.
I'm gonna go ahead and cue up the first round.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Perfect. Are we ready? Let's roast.
If you don't know this, Dolph and I have been very close friends for many, many years, and I think it's safe to say that you're a ladies' man, but you're perpetually single. Honestly, Dolph has lost more girls than an ICE detention center in El Paso.
Good start. Sarah is a country music singing, truck driving, beer drinking redneck. Woo!
Yeah!
The only thing feminine about her is she's not funny.
Goes for girls.
Yeah,
goes for girls aren't funny. I don't know.
I know it's hard because it's like people don't believe it. They're like, wait, she just proved that she was funny. So it's hard to do that joke. That joke is better to be done after I did a joke that bombed. That's when that joke should have been said.
Ooh, okay. I'm glad you did that. Yeah, that helps from a roast battle perspective. So you have them all written down. He came out with probably his inexperience showed, is what you're saying there.
Yeah. And he's nervous. And then also, I would just like to point out that you can see that both of us are sweating. So that was taped in August at, I forget what theater it was taped at, but the air conditioning broke that day. Oh. And so it was like 110 or 115 degrees inside. They had all these fans blowing. One of the girls in the balcony like passed out. And like it was really, really hot. And so people think that we were like nervous, but it was just like so freaking hot. And like I think the next day Comedy Central spent like $40,000 to put in air conditioning because it was supposed to be in there, but it broke. And then like, so anyway, just a little inside information. We weren't nervous. It was just that hot.
For the record, I couldn't tell you were sweating. He was sweating.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But he's also an athlete. He's a pro athlete, you know, like he sweats all the time.
One thing that this round brought up for me was the fact that maybe, and you can speak to this is my assumption, in roast battles, you do not have to worry about the evergreen potential of a joke. It can really, like that ice joke was so timely. And because of the format and because of the situation of a roast battle, jokes don't have to age well. You can do stuff that's like very timely and will work for you, and you don't have to worry. Like sometimes if you're thinking about putting out a special or putting out something online, you might think twice about inserting that. But roast, it's all fair game.
Topical is the best joke to do. Anything that is current events. I remember I roasted Tiffany Haddish, and like she was like she grew up in the foster care system. And so at the time, Boko Haram had like kidnapped all these girls, you know what I mean? And I made this joke about how she wishes she was one of those girls because their parents want them back. And
oh my God.
But like, if I brought up Boko Haram now, like who's going to remember? You know what I mean? Like that's a deep, dark dive, but like, and I think at the time when I roasted Ralphie May, it was like right after the Ray Rice incident. So I think I said something like, you know, you are a lot like Ray Rice. You're not an athlete, but no one wants to be on an elevator with you either. You know, so like topical jokes are like the best. They're the biggest ones that you can do. So like, that's why I think I came out swinging with that one, because it was like, it had freshly just happened. A bunch of kids, they had just opened those detention centers. And that's why you see Jeselnik going crazy, because he fucking loves that shit.
Yeah, that's his thing for sure.
Oh, yeah.
He was like,
Jeselnik and I started together. We used to run rooms together. So like him and I have been really close friends for 15 years. You know what I mean? So for sure, I know his sense of humor better than anybody. I've known him longer than any of those people up there.
Wow, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying you cheated in this roast battle by having, you knew the judges and you knew what they would like.
Yeah. I wish.
Let me play the next joke.
You know, the first time I went over to Dolph's house, there was pink underwear everywhere. And I was like, did you have a bunch of girls over last night? But of course, they were his underwear. And I was like, wow, there's more pink in this house than the Susan G. Komen Foundation. And the same number of breasts.
All that buildup, I don't know if you would prove me wrong, but still. Sarah is a down-home Southern girl. She's a tomboy. Her friends used to love to throw the pigskin around, and when they were done fucking Sarah, they'd all go play football.
I left the table in. I had to leave the table in.
Yeah, you got it.
One thing that this brings up for me is it seems like there's a thing using the other person's name as much as possible seems to give a little extra something to it. It just seems like every time someone does a roast joke, it always includes the other person's name.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation, because obviously it's personal. So you have to, you don't want it to be insert name here. You know what I mean? And I feel like, he personalized that joke by saying my name and then bringing up that I'm a sports fan. He needed to let people know that I was a sports fan in order to make that joke. I think it was a joke that like people have heard before. So maybe it's like, like if they just haven't heard it on me. And like my joke was like really specific. I had to explain what his house, that's a true story about his house.
That's right.
Yeah, it's also full of animal print. Everything is, it's like Snooki lives there.
That's what I would have guessed.
It's like, yeah, it is obnoxious. And so I was like, I'm always like, what women are walking, what you just have, and like, but I had to explain that. And you can tell the setup is way too long for the punchline. The punchline is not even about him. The punchline, that's the other thing. That's the trick of that joke. That joke is about the Susan G. Komen Foundation and how they don't have boobs.
Right.
So
it's a shock. It's a shock, right? That's where the punch comes from.
Yeah, it's just more of a joke of like the stakes are high. That's how any good roast joke works. The higher the stakes, the better the joke. if someone has died, that's like the ultimate stakes, right? So like, I think at the James Franco roast, James Gandolfini had just died. And so I wrote this joke like, James Franco, you're an insult to Italian actors everywhere. James Gandolfini must be trying to roll over in his grave right now,
right.
you know, and like, you know, it's like that had just happened. So the fact that it was new and the fact that he had died, like all of the stakes are high right there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Drew, the higher the stakes, really
Right.
smart.
Yep.
Kind of goes back to the Rick Roberts about raising the risk of the joke
Right.
creates the tension.
Perfect.
Yeah, but you still want it to be smart. You can raise the stakes all you want, but you have to think around the punchline. You can't just go for the obvious. You know what I mean? Like you can't say rolling over in his grave because that's what people would say. But making a fat joke on top of a dead joke, it adds layers. You know what I mean? So think of ways to make the joke even more anticipatory or creative. Like I remember for sorry, baby dropped his toy. I remember for the Ralphie May roast, like I think I said something about how like Ralphie's really getting into fitness. He recently took up yoga just so he could get flexible enough to kiss his foot goodbye. You know what I mean? Like that is a diabetes joke that is encased in a fat joke that is encased in a yoga joke. You don't see it coming. So like the more blind people can be leading up to it, the better it can be, you know.
Jokeception right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Perfect. Layering. I love it. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to go into the next joke. I believe this is the next joke.
Dolph's last girlfriend broke up with him, and I don't blame her because every time he went down on her, he would tap out after a 3 count. What I heard.
Oh, God. Sarah, if we weren't such good friends, I would feel like that you were a little jealous that I'm a wrestler. You know, every week you have to watch me, your friend, walk down the aisle while music plays and everyone's looking at me and there's a ring at the end. To be fair, I get pinned by big sweaty guys, but I get paid millions of dollars. When you do it, it's just for like Waffle House and a ride home.
You should have opened with that.
Yeah. Yours was tighter, so you win in that. His was good. I mean, that was a deep dig. Yeah.
That joke and I think the next one that you're probably going to show were the best jokes. So I would have bookmarked those two on the ends. But yeah, it's so perfect. It is exactly all the things that you can make fun of me like about like taking every concept of a wedding and layering it into one joke. So smart.
One thing, just strategically here, I noticed something. You are such a kind human, it would seem, except for your roast jokes, that you are laughing at the other comedians' jokes during it. Now, if you were being super competitive, is it a better strategy to win to straight face and not act like their joke is funny?
Well, if it's funny, I'm going to laugh. I can't help it. You know what I mean? Like, and I also think the better you are at taking jokes, the funnier it is for everybody, you know, like it just makes the whole experience. Yeah. Like nobody wants to see my feelings hurt. So maybe even if I didn't like the joke, I would probably laugh, but if I really like it, I'll laugh hard. You know, like I remember, so for the Rob Lowe roast, Peyton Manning was my guy. Like I worked on his the most and his performance the most. And that was because I was the only female writer in the room, but I was also the only one that knew anything about football. But I remember, you know, sitting with Peyton, like everything is like the book, right? Like he's like, give me a playbook, I'm gonna follow it. You know, he would like practice everything, like the cadence, you know, like the way his hands moved, everything. Okay. And before he went on, I remember saying to him, like, if you think the joke's funny, laugh. If you hate it, laugh harder, because that will endear you to everybody. If they think you're having a good time, they'll have a good time. And it doesn't even matter how you do. Like if they're having a good time, they'll think you were awesome because you took a joke about yourself. Like the more you can take a joke about yourself, the funnier you seem to everybody else. because nobody wants to go to a show and then like someone's bummed out and then like who's having a good time because someone's feelings got hurt. They're just jokes. It doesn't even matter. I'm more offended if the joke's not funny. I'm like, man, I spent so much time writing these jokes about you. You could have done a little bit of research on me.
This is a good, you've called out so many roasts. So you've got such a career in this. Have you, is there, in your experience, was there anybody that was like so bummed out, like they couldn't take it? Like, and you don't have to use a name or you can if you'd like, but somebody that just couldn't take it.
I haven't had anybody that couldn't take it. You know, like Sybil Shepherd, she was like, I don't even want to know what the jokes mean because if I understand them, I'm going to probably be upset. So don't explain why the joke to me. And I'm like, great. You know what I mean? Like the jokes that we wrote for her, she didn't want explained. The jokes about her, which, she was just like more appalled because she's like a sweet mom. You know what I mean? And then I also had Ann Coulter for the Rob Lowe roast. And, I think the example of her is like, she, to me, was a really great person to work with. She didn't really listen to my advice. Like, I remember telling her, like, go up there and say, just open and say, like, if people boo you, say, unlike Rob Lowe, I can handle my booze, right? Because he's an alcoholic.
Sober, yeah.
Right. And she was like, they're not going to boo me. And I was like, all right, have a good time. Like, what can I do? But the whole time I remember she wasn't laughing. And I was like, you have to laugh. You know what I mean? Like, if you laugh, like, it will make you seem like so much softer and your set's going to go so much better. And she goes, well, I'll laugh when it's funny. And I was like, you're actually right. Because everybody just kept calling her a cunt. And it's like, that's not a joke. Those aren't jokes. There are plenty of jokes to make about Ann Coulter. You can do all of these jokes. The best joke on the whole thing about her was was the one I wrote for Peyton, but it was also Nikki Glazer wrote that joke that was like, the only man that will ever love you is the Mexican that digs your grave. And,
that's right.
That's a fantastically layered joke. So, and she would laugh and she has a sense of humor about herself, but like the jokes about her were just mean. And that's the problem. When you roast someone that you don't love, that's how the jokes turn out. That's an example of that.
That's a great call out. I remember watching that roast and I do remember they kept cutting to her being really uncomfortable. And it like at home, I'm like, ugh, Ann Coulter, that is. Nikki,
I know, yeah, and like she's already hated, but she had such this huge opportunity. Like Tony Hinchcliffe and I just like revisited this because we wrote her script for her, and we had all these great jokes about Obama and Hollywood and all the snowflakes in the room, and it was so funny, and it called out all their like hypocrisy and bullshit. You know what I mean? But it was like still soft and kind and self-loathing, and she wouldn't do it. She wanted to like make jokes about Horatio Sands, and we're like, he's not even there, and nobody even knows who that is. If you want to make fun of a Mexican, we'll give you a Mexican to make fun of. You know what I mean? But like, don't just like try to make Mexican jokes for no reason. It was so dumb. But what are you gonna do? But she was incredibly kind to me, and I think that she is like a soft, gentle person at heart. I think she's really smart. She just didn't approach that the way I would have.
Sure. Shut up, I'm going to play the last clip.
I always worry about Dolph because he's had 3 concussions. So I'm always worried that he's going to have CTE. But I know you're never going to kill yourself because if there's one thing you don't have in your house, it's a belt.
God, this might be the CTE and the concussions talking, but you look pretty tonight, Sarah. Oh, Sarah, I didn't know how intense this was gonna get. I didn't know if I'd have to bust out a super kick, but I mean, I know in your act you say a lot, you're not married, you're getting down the line, and just, I didn't want that to be the only time you ever felt a kick in your stomach.
Hey, he's got a belt now and you have a baby. So this is
motivation. Yeah.
Those were definitely solid final jokes on both sides.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah. I mean, And honestly, that belt joke, I think I recycled that from Ralphie May, because I did a joke about Ralphie. That was right when Robin Williams died. And I used it like that. Like, I don't want you to go out like Robin Williams. We've lost so many, but I know you'll never hang yourself, because if there's one thing you don't have in your house, it's a belt. And it works as a fat joke too. But then it also worked with Nick because he's a notorious loser. And so it works. You just have to, so like all the best writing is rewriting. I will tell you that. Like when we go into a roast room, when we go into a writer's room, you're constantly looking at jokes that you wrote from roast before. And you're like, how can I remanufacture these and like rewrite these to fit other people, not ones that already used or were worked. But at the same time, like I think Jeff like reused the B. Arthur, I wouldn't fuck you with B. Arthur's dick. I think he did that with a couple of other people, it was like a little callback joke that people knew that he did. Like somebody else can't do that joke. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like Seth Rogen can't do that joke, but like Jeff can do it again because it was his joke.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you almost have like templates of, that you can insert, depending on who you're writing for or who you're writing against, that you've got these formats you can just kind of use and sometimes revisit. Do you have notebooks worth of this stuff that you call back to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Also, there's, I always tell people who are writing, there's this great website called rhymezone.com. And on RhymeZone, you can put in a word and there's a tab at the top that says related words. So if I put in belt, it will bring up all the words related to the word belt, And so it helps you think in a different direction. So like when you're roasting someone like Dolph, you go, what are the things about him? He wears underwear. He's a wrestler. They're in a ring. He has belt. Like, what are all the words associated with wrestling? You could go to, just write in wrestling and like see what comes up. You know what I mean? And then it's probably going to bring up old wrestlers. So what old wrestlers can I compare him to? You know what I mean? So I remember one that are we done with the ones with him and I
think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it.
Right. There was a John Cena joke that I remember, like John Cena, he dated a girl that John Cena is now or was engaged to at the time. And so I was like, she didn't even break up with him before she got with John Cena. She just said, you can't see me anymore, and like, but you have to know wrestling to really get that joke. And I didn't do that on the show because I was afraid not enough people, it might be too inside. So it's like, you can write all these jokes, but like, you also have to like know your audience, like know who's there. Like when we're doing live shows, I can do that joke all day because everybody's there is a wrestling fan. They're coming there to see him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing you still have to know still, that's another thing that still is true about comedy, in some sense, know your audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like your baby's getting restless.
No, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
He's got a rattle.
We just want to make sure you can be mom today. You ended up winning that, I believe, 2-1. I think somebody ended up voting for Dolph, but you did end up winning. So congratulations. And what a fun time it looked like y'all had. And y'all must have had such a great tour together.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to do our quick roast? You game for that still?
Yeah, whatever you want.
No, you went first. Is that a strategy? Why go first?
I have to pick him up. Sorry.
Oh no, we're happy. I love seeing him. Yeah. What was your strategy with I go first? Do you always like coming out first on these battles?
I think it just shows a little bit more strength. It shows that I'm not afraid. I think it just says like, and like sometimes I just want to get my dig in before you because I don't want to have to do a rebuttal right away.
And
I'd rather just get my first joke out.
And I think I've seen you do this too. Sometimes you can step aside in a funny way too, and make fun of them in a dig.
Right. Like if he would have gone first with his first joke before and said you were unfunny before you'd even spoken.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Then it might have worked a little better if he would have stepped up and gone first with that and not told it right after you zinged him with a wonderful joke.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I'm going to show some strength, Drew, and go first. Then we have so Sarah. The way this is going to work is we're going to have three jokes, 3 rounds.
Okay.
And you can pick a winner, and we can't end in a hug because we're in quarantine. All right. So you may not be able to see this on the camera, but Drew has a lot of tattoos. He wears jeans with holes in them, old t-shirts, kind of styles his hair a little bit. So most of the time when we go to Mike's, we're looking for laughs. Drew looks like he's looking for heroin.
That's good.
Not bad. You're a great looking guy, Brian. You really are. You're a wonderful looking guy. And if popped collars and loafers without socks ever needed a spokesperson, you're the guy.
We're looking for advertisers. All right. So Drew's wife, Sarah, this is true, sadly divorced him, left him for a woman, but nobody was surprised because Drew does look like an obnoxious pillow talker, and she's always been into pussies.
I like that one. I actually do like that one.
That's pretty good.
Oh, Brian, you've excelled in everything you've tried. You know, it's amazing. You married a doctor. You have 2 awesome kids. You started your own business. You've been incredibly successful, and all that's left is for you to announce that you're a terrible pedophile.
Ooh, my trip to Epstein Island. Okay. Yeah. Drew works in Christian radio. The slogan for his radio station is God Listens, which he's also adopted as the slogan for his comedy because God is the only one who's listening during his sets. In fact, I think God invented COVID just to cancel Drew. So Sarah, blame Drew for being out of work right now.
Promise. All right. Not bad. Brian, here's the deal. You're an entrepreneur. You're financially successful. You have a strong jawline. You have that haircut. You dress like a frat boy. You play lacrosse. Standing in the grocery store next to the tampons is the only way you could be more of a douchebag.
That was a good ending.
Ooh. All right. Ding, 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 ding.
That was good, you guys. That seemed really personal, but also loving. You know, like clearly you're making fun of his wife leaving him for another woman because that's something you've probably openly talked about. Right?
Another woman. I like that you put it that way.
Yeah, I think you didn't need the pillow talk part. I think the best part about both had really good jokes. They should just have been shorter. It's like you don't need the pillow talk. You could just say, I'm surprised she didn't stay married to you because she's always been into pussy or whatever. And she might get back together, whatever. And then I thought, Brian, that first joke about the heroin, I think heroin might have been a little too obvious. So maybe the only reason you're going to open mics is to look for someone's Netflix password, like something even sadder than drugs. You know what I mean? Could also work. And then Drew. Yeah, Cage was pretty tired of your jokes.
Yeah,
they made him really sleepy. Yeah. Are you really a Christian radio host?
Yeah, that's been I've been in radio for 13, 14 years now.
Yeah, because those seemed very nice. They didn't seem too roasty. They seemed very like they were just truths that you thought were maybe funny.
gotta turn up the
You're gonna have to turn up the heat a little bit there. I like the douchebag joke though, because I think Brian does look like a douchebag. You know what I mean? He looks like he should be hosting, you look like you should have a career calling college football games, but you're just on the verge of getting charged with sexual harassment every day. Yeah.
It seems like a lot. It seems like one thing that's really fun to play off is just someone's appearance is so much of roast jokes.
Yeah, for sure.
The most obvious thing that the judges
and
in the audience
everyone can see it. If they don't know you, they know what you look like. That's the most obvious thing. You know what I mean? So it's the first thing that people go for because it's great. You know what I mean? And when you're very pretty, like Brian is, you know what I mean? Why not make fun of that? Why not
absolutely
try to take his pretty head off?
Oh man. Well, thank you. Let's land this plane. So who won?
Brian, I think you won.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're also
pretty deep.
Thank you. We're also going to leave it to our listeners too, if you want to. So we'll let them have a vote and a say as well.
I definitely, as she put, I kind of want to steal that pussy joke now.
See? You want jokes about yourself that you can use. Yes, the best.
That's perfect. Well, we have our last segment. It's kind of morbid. We have young life here, but we're going to be talking about the end of life, just because, like you said, that's the ultimate stakes. I like how you put that. It's called Last Laugh, and it's what would Sarah Tiana want on her tombstone? That's our last joke.
Oh, so I think, the thing that I told Mike Lawrence that I didn't really tell anybody else was just how I was a prude. And so I think that my tombstone should say, she finally put out. I don't know. I don't know if that tracks, but it's like close enough.
It's so good. You are a super talented roast writer. You've had so much experience. This episode is going to be so meaningful it was to me, and I know it will be to a lot of our listeners. And
oh, that's so nice.
We really appreciate you taking the time this morning with your baby in tow to do this with us, and wish you all the best, and we'll continue to follow your career. I mean, it's so exciting, the places you've gone, and I'm jealous of all the athletes you get to meet. That's pretty dope. So seems like you live a pretty cool life. So keep doing what you're doing.
Pretty lucky. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a real honor. I really appreciate you guys asking. So hopefully if anybody else has any more questions, my DMs are always open on Twitter. So if you have a joke you need to run by me or a question, just DM me and then I'll try to help you with it.
And then your Twitter handle for our listeners?
Sarah Tiana. Sarah with an H. Tiana with a Tiana.
Very simple. All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. It's been Breaking Down Bits. Drew Jordan, we'll see you soon. Sarah Tiana, keep doing it.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Down Bits. You can keep in touch or get more when you follow @BreakingDownBits on social media, visit the website breakingdownbits.com, or shoot us an email at breakingdownbits@gmail.com.